In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the author shares his experience of having two dads, one rich and one poor, who had very different perspectives on money. While both were successful in their careers, the rich dad would become one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii, leaving millions to his family and charities, while the poor dad struggled financially and left bills to be paid. The author reflects on the conflicting advice he received from both dads, particularly regarding money. One dad believed that the love of money is the root of all evil, while the other believed that the lack of money is the root of all evil. This contrast in perspectives forced the author to think critically and ultimately choose his own way of thinking about money. He emphasized that money is not taught in author, and one of his poems, The Road Not Taken, perfectly captures the dilemma I faced as a young boy. The poem describes two paths diverging in a yellow wood, and the speaker must choose which one to take. He looks down one path as far as he can see, but then decides to take the other, the one less traveled. This decision, the speaker says, has made all the difference. For me, the two paths were represented by my two dads, each with their own perspective on money and success. I could have followed my poor dad's path, which was safe and familiar, but ultimately led to financial struggle. Or I could have taken my rich dad's path, which was riskier but promised greater rewards. How unfair it was that we couldn't afford the same things as the rich kids. But mostly, we brainstormed. We thought about lemonade stands, selling homemade crafts, and even starting a lawn mowing service. But none of those ideas seemed good enough. We wanted something bigger, something that could make us a lot of money. That's when we came up with the idea of collecting discarded soda bottles. In those days, soda bottles had a deposit on them, so we figured we could collect as many as possible and turn them in for cash. We scoured the town, digging through trash cans and asking neighbors if we could have their empty bottles. It was hard work, but we were determined to make it work. Eventually, we in this part of the story, the author and his friend Mike were determined to find a way to make money after feeling left out from the rich kids at Jimmy's beach house. They brainstormed ideas, but nothing seemed good enough until Mike got an idea from a science book he had read. They decided to collect used toothpaste tubes from their neighbors and turn them into something valuable. However, their stockpile of used toothpaste tubes started to pile up in the house, and the author's mom was not happy about it. She gave them a 1-week extension to use up all the toothpaste tubes and start production. The author and Mike started to put together a production line, which involved melting down the toothpaste tubes made of lead and pouring you boys how to make money. But you have to work for it. I won't give you anything for free, you have to earn it. Mike and I looked at each other, excited for the opportunity but also a little nervous about what we were getting ourselves into. Mike's dad continued, I'll give you a job at one of my restaurants. You'll start as dishwashers and work your way up. You'll learn all the different jobs in the restaurant, from cooking to serving to managing. And if you do well, I'll teach you more about how to make money. We eagerly accepted the offer, and the lessons began. We worked hard, learning everything we could about the restaurant business. We cleaned dishes, cooked Mike and me to follow him. We walked outside, and he led us to his car. Get in, he said. We got in the car, and he started driving. I was confused and nervous, not knowing where we were going or what we were going to do. Rich Dad finally broke the silence. I've been watching you and Mike work at the superette, he said. You've been doing a good job, but you are not making any money. I'm going to teach you how to make money. He then pulled into a parking lot and parked the car. Get out, he said. We got out of the car and followed him to a small building. It was a run-down, old building that Rich Dad takes the boys to his office and they confront him about not keeping his promise to teach them about money. Rich Dad explains that life is the best teacher and that it pushes people around to teach them lessons. He says that some people give up and others fight, but the few who learn the lesson and move on are the ones who become wise, wealthy, and happy. He also says that most people spend their lives working for money without understanding what it is they are working for. The boys realize that they need to learn about money and are curious to learn from Rich Dad. It'd be great if we could all learn how to make money work for us. That's exactly what Rich Dad taught the boys. He explained that life is the best teacher and that it pushes people around to teach them lessons. It was a lesson that the boys were about to learn firsthand. You see, the boys confronted Rich Dad about not keeping his promise to teach them about money. Rich Dad had a unique way of teaching, and he decided to let life push the boys around a bit so they could hear him. He paid them only 10 cents an hour, and the boys were not happy about it. But Rich Dad explained that the lesson they were learning was not about him being cheap but about changing their perspective. He said that most people they don't have enough money and continue to work for it. The choice is yours. Rich Dad's words hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that if I wanted to truly learn about money, I needed to be willing to put in the work and not just expect to be paid for my time. It was a tough lesson to learn, but I knew it was necessary. I left Rich Dad's house that day feeling both excited and scared about the journey ahead of me. But I was determined to learn how to have money work for me, not the other way around. Rich Dad gave me a lesson that I would never forget. He told me that the rich don't work for money. At first, I was confused and didn't understand what he meant. But as he explained, I started to see the truth behind his words. He showed me that if I wanted to learn about money, I needed to be willing to put in the work and not just expect to be paid for my time. He even gave me an opportunity to work for him for free, which was a tough pill to swallow. But I knew that this was necessary if I wanted to learn how to have money work for me, not the other way around. During those weeks of working for free, I started to understand the trap that most people work at a job for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for decades, just to earn a paycheck. They say they are not interested in money, but their actions say otherwise. They are just as attached to money as someone who hoards it. The difference is that they are attached to the security that money provides, rather than the money itself. But in the end, it's still fear that's controlling their lives. Rich Dad paused for a moment, letting his words sink in. The key to breaking free from the rat race is to stop letting fear and desire control your life. You need to start telling the truth about how you feel, and then use your head to think logically about how to achieve your goals. You knowing what they truly want in life. They think that money will solve all their problems, but in reality, it only creates more problems. It's like a never-ending cycle. The desire for money can cloud our judgment and lead us to make poor decisions. We need to learn to control our desires and focus on what truly matters to us. That's the key to breaking free from the rat race. It's not about working hotter or longer. It's about working smarter and being true to ourselves. We need to stop letting fear and desire control our lives and start using our minds and emotions in our favor. It's not an easy journey, but it's a journey that's worth taking. It's a journey that will lead us to Rich Dad tells a story about a donkey chasing a carrot, and how it's similar to how people chase after money. People think that money will solve all their problems, but it only creates more problems. Fear and desire can control our lives and lead us down a dangerous path. The key to breaking free from this trap is to focus on what truly matters to us and to stop letting fear and desire control our lives. Rich Dad explains that ignorance intensifies fear and desire, and that the struggle between ignorance and illumination is a moment-to-moment decision. Schools are important, but unfortunately for many people, school is the end, not the beginning. Rich Dad encourages us to always think of Mrs. Martin and the donkey, and to never learning from Rich Dad. He taught us to break free from the trap of chasing money and to focus on what truly matters to us. He explained that fear and desire can control our lives and lead us down a dangerous path, but that choosing our thoughts and learning to have money work for us is the way out. He took us into the briar patch, where we confronted our fears and weaknesses and learned to think rationally instead of reacting emotionally. Rich Dad taught us that a job is only a short-term solution to a long-term problem and that most people are too afraid to ask themselves if there is another way. He showed us that money is an illusion and that the rich know how to make money, not work for it. He encouraged us in this section. The author tells a story about how he and his friend Mike started a comic book library after they saw the store owner throwing away comic books. They worked hard to create a library and charged 10 cents admission to the children in the neighborhood. The library was a hit, and they made a profit of $9.50 per week over a 3-month period. However, the library was shut down after a fight broke out. Despite this setback, the author learned an important lesson from his rich dad, who taught him that it's not about how much money you make, but how much money you keep. By starting their own business, the author and Mike were in control of their finances and learned how to make money work for them in this section. The author talks about how many wealthy and successful people from the past ended up losing everything and dying penniless. He believes that in our current times of rapid change, it's important to focus on education and financial literacy instead of just chasing after money. The author shares stories of lottery winners and professional athletes who lost everything, emphasizing that it's not about how much money you make, but how much you keep and how many generations you can keep it for. The author's rich dad taught him the importance of financial literacy from a young age. using simple pictures and jargon to make accounting understandable. The author believes that accounting is one of the most important subjects for building a strong financial foundation and achieving long-term wealth. Get rich. You need to focus on acquiring assets and avoiding liabilities. This may sound simple, but most people struggle financially because they don't understand the difference between the two. Rich Dad taught me and my friend Mike this important lesson when we were young, using simple drawings to explain the concept of assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket, while a liability takes money out of your pocket. It's not about the words used to define them, but the numbers that tell the story. If you can't read the numbers, you can't tell an asset from a hole in the ground. That's why it's important to focus on financial literacy and understand the cash flow patterns of assets and liabilities. Remember, the rich acquire assets. Lesson to learn about becoming rich is to focus on acquiring assets and avoiding liabilities. This may sound simple, but most people struggle financially because they don't understand the difference between the two. That's why it's important to be financially literate, in words as well as numbers. The flow of cash tells the story of how a person handles their money. The cash flow pattern of a poor person is to spend their lives buying liabilities instead of assets. On the other hand, the cash flow pattern of a rich person is to spend their lives buying assets. Money often makes obvious our tragic human flaws, putting a spotlight on what we don't know. That is why, all too often, a person who comes into a sudden windfall of cash soon keeps people trapped in the rat race. They work hard and make more money, but their liabilities keep piling up. They buy a house, a car, furniture, and appliances. They pay property taxes and then get hit with credit card debt. They try to consolidate their debt by taking out a loan and end up extending their debt over 30 years. They keep digging themselves into a hole and wonder why they can't make ends meet. They come to me asking how to make more money, but the truth is they need to learn about assets and liabilities. They need to understand that more money won't solve their problems if they don't know how to manage it. My dad used to tell us about the 3 powers the Japanese valued in Rich Dad Poor Dad. The author challenges commonly accepted financial opinions and trends that keep people trapped in the rat race. He shares his experiences growing up with 2 dads, one who was financially educated and successful, and one who was highly educated but struggled financially. The author learned more about money from his financially educated dad, who taught him to think for himself and hire people who were more intelligent than he was. The author also discusses the concept of assets and liabilities. He argues that many people think their home is an asset, but it is actually a liability because it takes money out of their pockets. He draws a diagram for his dad showing the direction of cash flow and the ancillary expenses that come with owning a home. He acknowledges that financial education is lacking, and they rely on their home as their primary asset. This mindset is what keeps them trapped in the rat race. The problem is that a home is not always an asset, and it can actually be a liability that drains your finances. Many people end up owing more on their homes than they are worth, and they miss out on opportunities to invest in income-producing assets. The key to financial success is to focus on building your asset column, not just your income. This means investing in assets that generate cash flow, such as stocks, real estate, and businesses. By doing so, you can create a passive income stream that will continue to grow over time. This is how the rich get richer, and it's why founder of McDonald's gave a speech at a university where he shared his secrets to success. He said that the reason he was able to build a successful business was because he focused on his asset column, not just his income statement. He knew that his income would only take him so far, but by investing in assets that generated cash flow, he could create a sustainable income stream that would continue to grow over time. This is the key to financial success: building your asset column. Most people focus solely on their income and rely on their paycheck to survive. But this is a dangerous mindset because it leaves you vulnerable to economic downturns, job loss, and other financial setbacks. Instead, you should focus on acquiring income-generating assets such as, picture this: Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, was invited to speak to an MBA class at the University of Texas at Austin. After his inspiring talk, the students invited him to hang out with them and have a few beers. Ray then asked the group a question: "What business am I in?" The students thought it was a joke and yelled out, "You're in the hamburger business." But Ray surprised them by saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate." Ray knew that the location of each franchise was the most important factor in its success. So, even though the primary focus was to sell hamburger franchises, he never lost sight of the location of each. Rich Dad taught me focus on acquiring assets that will bring in income and appreciate in value over time. But what exactly are assets? In this book, we learn that assets are things that put money into our pockets, while liabilities take money out.